In the heart of an old, desolate town stood a dilapidated house, its weather-beaten facade betraying the grandeur it once held. It was said to have been the residence of a wealthy family that had long since faded into obscurity. Yet, hidden within its decaying walls lay a secret that whispered of sorrow and abandonment: the forgotten dollhouse. The townsfolk spoke in hushed tones about the cursed dollhouse, its existence obscured by time and fear. They whispered of strange occurrences, of eerie shadows that danced within its dusty rooms, and of dolls that seemed to move when no one was watching. One dreary evening, as the moon cast a pallid glow over the deserted streets, a curious soul dared to venture into the forsaken house. With trepidation clawing at their heart, they pushed open the creaking door and stepped into the darkness within. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the only sound that greeted them was the mournful howl of the wind. Yet, amidst the desolation, they spotted it: the forgotten dollhouse, nestled in a corner, its once vibrant colors now faded with age. Approaching with caution, they reached out a trembling hand to touch its weathered exterior. As their fingertips brushed against the cold wood, a shiver ran down their spine, for they felt a presence, an unseen force that stirred within. With bated breath, they pushed open the miniature door and peered inside. What they saw froze the blood in their veins. A perfect replica of the abandoned house, every detail painstakingly recreated in miniature. But it was not the fidelity of the replica that filled them with dread. It was the realization that within its tiny rooms, the dolls moved, their lifeless eyes following their every move with silent accusation. In that moment of terror, they knew they had trespassed upon something beyond their understanding, something that had been forgotten by time but remembered by the spirits that lingered within. With a cry of horror, they fled from the accursed house, leaving behind the forgotten dollhouse to its silent guardians. With trembling hands, I fled the chamber, haunted by the echoes of suffering that lingered in my wake. And as they stumbled into the safety of the moonlit night, they swore they could still hear the echoes of whispered secrets and mournful laments, haunting reminders of a past that refused to be forgotten. As the night draped the world in obsidian, a haunting hue of red painted the sky, casting an eerie glow upon the landscape. It was the blood moon rising, a celestial spectacle whispered about in legends and feared by those who understood its significance. I remember that night vividly, not for the beauty of the moon, but for the scar it left upon my soul. It was a tale etched in blood and shadow, one that I shall carry until my last breath. The village where I dwelled lay nestled amidst towering trees, their branches reaching towards the heavens like skeletal fingers grasping for salvation. On nights like these, when the moon bled its crimson tears, the forest whispered ancient secrets, and the air crackled with an ominous energy. I, too, was drawn to the allure of the blood moon, its allure pulling me deeper into the woods, where mysteries waited to be unraveled. With each step, the shadows danced around me, their whispers growing louder, until they were a cacophony of voices urging me forward. And then I saw it, a clearing bathed in the ethereal light of the moon, a lone figure standing at its center. Cloaked in darkness, yet illuminated by the crimson glow, it beckoned to me with a silent promise of revelation. I approached cautiously, the thud of my heart echoing in the silence of the night. The figure turned, revealing eyes as red as the moon above, a reflection of the celestial anomaly that cast its gaze upon us. In that moment, I knew fear unlike any I had ever known. But it was too late to turn back, for fate had already woven its tapestry, and I was but a pawn in its grand design. The figure spoke, its voice a whisper that echoed through the recesses of my mind, filling me with dread and wonder in equal measure. It told me of sacrifices made beneath the blood moon, of ancient rites performed to appease forces beyond mortal comprehension. And then, it reached out, its fingers tracing a pattern upon my flesh, a scar that would forever mark me as a witness to the secrets of the night. As the pain seared through me, I felt a part of myself slipping away, consumed by the darkness that enveloped us. When I awoke, the blood moon had set, leaving behind only the lingering traces of its presence. But the memory remained, etched into my mind like the scar upon my skin. a reminder of the night I danced with shadows beneath the crimson eclipse. As I walked down the overgrown path leading to the abandoned asylum, the echoes of its past seemed to reverberate through the air. The once imposing structure now stood as a mere shell of its former self, its windows shattered and its walls covered in graffiti. But despite its dilapidated state, there was an eerie beauty to the place, a beauty born from the stories it held within its walls. I had heard tales of the asylum since I was a child, stories whispered in hushed tones by the locals. They spoke of the patients who had once dwelled within its confines, of the horrors they had endured at the hands of those who were meant to care for them. But it was the scar story that intrigued me the most, the tale of a patient whose screams still echoed through the halls long after they had passed away. As I stepped through the broken doorway, I felt a chill run down my spine. The air was heavy with the weight of the past, and I could almost hear the whispers of the forgotten souls who had once called this place home. I made my way through the corridors, my footsteps echoing off the walls like a haunting melody. It wasn't long before I found myself standing outside the door to the abandoned ward, the place where the scar story had taken place. With a shaky hand, I pushed open the door and stepped inside, the darkness swallowing me whole. The room was filled with shadows, but in the dim light, I could make out the outline of a bed in the center of the room. As I approached, I saw something etched into the wooden frame, a series of marks that formed a pattern of scars. I reached out to touch them, and as my fingers grazed the rough surface, I felt a shiver run down my spine. It was as if the scars themselves held the memories of the one who had made them, a silent testament to the horrors they had endured. And then, in the silence of the abandoned ward, I heard it, a faint whisper, barely audible above the sound of my own heartbeat. It spoke of pain and suffering, of loneliness and despair. It was the echo of a soul long forgotten, reaching out from beyond the grave to tell its story one last time. As I stood there, listening to the echoes of the abandoned asylum, I couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness wash over me. For in that moment, I realized that the true horror of the place was not in the crumbling walls or the empty halls, but in the stories of those who had lived and died within its confines. And though their voices may have been silenced, their echoes would forever haunt the halls of the asylum, a reminder of the darkness that lurks within us all. But though the night had passed, the memories of that fateful encounter would stay with me forever, a testament to the power of the crimson eclipse and the mysteries that lie hidden in its shadowy embrace.